In this video, we'll be talking about the chain in your Famag mixer. Before doing any work or inspection in your machine like this, be sure to disconnect it from power and keep the power disconnected until the covers are fastened back on the machine and the work is done. This machine is relatively new, and this is a new chain, but we have loosened it just to show what a two-loose chain looks like. There are several factors that influence the rate of wear of your chain. Chains and sprockets are wear parts. Over time, they inevitably wear away and need to be replaced. But some of those factors include adjustment, load, and lubrication. If your chain is too loose, so it's this loose, and we do see chains sometimes that are even looser than this, your chain can just jump around and meshes with your sprockets incorrectly. You can see particles start to get chewed off of the sprocket and chain, and you'll see little bits of metal in the top of the mixer when that happens. Some of those bits of metal will be still on your chain, still on your sprocket, and just grind away the chain and the sprockets and just hugely accelerate the rate of wear. So it's very important to keep your chain inspected, and we do have a separate video on moving this sprocket forward to keep this chain from having too much slack in it. So we won't address that specifically now, but that's an important factor in the life of your chain, keeping it from having too much play. Load is another factor. If you are a commercial user and you're doing heavy loads, doing it all day long, your components will need to be inspected, adjusted, lubricated more often, and will still wear faster than if you were, say, a home user doing occasional use, maybe not with such large loads or heavy loads. We make recommendations in the manual about intervals for inspection and maintenance. Those are general guidelines, and the best way to know how often you need to inspect and service various parts of your machine is to start early with inspections and monitor what's going on. If you inspect your machine 3 times at a certain interval and find that you really don't have to adjust the chain even over 3 inspections, then you can probably draw out your inspection interval a bit, so that you're just not wasting time inspecting something that doesn't need it yet. And by the same token, if you find that first time or second time you inspect that you have quite a lot of play in your chain, for example, then you probably need to tighten up your inspection schedule and do that more often. Another thing that you need to do for your chain and sprockets is keep them properly lubricated. On the Pleasant Hill Grain website, we offer lubricants that are ideal for this purpose, and you can check those out. Now, no matter how well you maintain your machine, your chain, your sprockets, keep things adjusted, keep things lubricated, eventually you will need to replace the chain. The general advice for replacement of roller chains is to replace them when the chain elongation reaches between 2 and 3% of the chain's original length. This chain is a 06B chain. It has a pitch of, where did that go here? 9.525 millimeters, which means the distance between 2 pins is 9.525, or about 9.5 millimeters. And the way we measure elongation of the chain, sometimes called stretch, it's a bit of a misnomer because the chain parts themselves aren't actually stretching, but the wear is allowing the chain overall to get longer, is by measuring across a number of pins. And what you can do is count 10 pins and measure the distance between those pins. Now, we have a digital caliper here. Certainly don't need to use a digital caliper for this purpose. for our demonstration today, it makes it easy for you to see in the little window there that this new chain measures 95.25 millimeters across 10 lengths. Now, we recommend not going to 3% before you replace. We recommend replacing at about 2% stretch. You'll get longer life out of your sprockets that way. And that means that when you get to right about 97.25 millimeters across 10 pins, it's time to replace your chain. When measuring like this, if you're measuring on a chain that's got a little slack here around the sprockets, you can just pull, as I am here, on the opposite side to pull the piece we're measuring. We do need to have it tight to know how much elongation we have here. And of course, in this chain, we have no elongation at all yet. But that's our recommendation. When you get about 97.25 or 97.5 millimeters, we would replace that chain. Chain replacement first requires removal. These chains have what's called a master link. In this chain, the master link is where I'm pointing here. And if you've never done this before, you replace a master link by using a needle nose pliers to hook over the pin, grab the end of this spring snap link on top, and then grab that and lift it off. Can be a little tricky to do, obviously, sometimes. Yep. Okay, it popped off and fell down. Then you'll have a top plate to lift off. And bottom part comes out. And then your chain just falls right off. I'm not going to demonstrate putting the new chain back on, but it's just a reversal of that same process. We do also make chain available at Pleasant Hill Grain, specifically cut to length for your particular model of mixer. The sprockets themselves will wear in a hooked shape. We're going to show a still here on the video so you can see what a hooked sprocket tooth looks like. And when you see that kind of pronounced hooking in your sprocket teeth, then it's time to replace the sprockets. We have a separate video to demonstrate the removal and replacement of sprockets, so we're not going to do that today. But keep an eye on your sprocket teeth shape for that. Typically, you would not need to replace the sprockets until you've gone through several chains. So for a home user, that is usually going to be many years that you'll get out of your initial sprockets. Also, I wanted to mention that the chain we sell at Pleasant Hill Grain is pre-stretched so that you don't have accelerated initial stretch. That's a good thing to look for in a replacement chain, because otherwise when you put a new chain on, if the chain hasn't been pre-stretched, then it'll stretch rapidly at the beginning, and you'll have to inspect it and just keep adjusting it. Pre-stretched chain eliminates that need.